Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for another Ducktales lore video. So, there are characters that only exist in Ducktales. And I'm not talking about characters like Fowl. I'm talking about characters that they look like they should belong in other parts of the Duck universe, but they don't. And they only exist within the confines of DuckTales itself. As a matter of fact, you won't even see them outside of DuckTales. You won't even see them in the House of Mouse or any other Disney-related project that should feature them. You just won't. And with that in mind, you could really only compare them to one other source, which is the original DuckTales cartoon. So instead of devoting a video to each of them, because some of them really don't have enough to say, we're just going to take a couple of them and then compare them to their original counterpart in the '87 cartoon. So for that, we're going to use about, I think, 4. Duckworth, Doofus, Mrs. Beakley, and Launchpad. Other characters like Fenton, Bubba, Gandra D will probably come in a different video. More than likely the next DuckTales lore video. So let's start with Doofus, and honestly, Doofus had the joy of being a character I'm annoyed with in both versions of the show. So the '87 has him set up as well, the fat, stupid sidekick to Launchpad. That is legitimately Doofus' really defining trait. Even when he has stories with other characters, he has slightly similar episodes, single episodes with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. I think he has one, but even then, it's still with Launchpad. He has another story with Scrooge that's still with Launchpad. I think he has another one, Nothing to Fear, I believe is the name of the episode, but he's just one of many characters who fall under the spell of Magica's curse, which makes them face their fears, which for Doof is just a bully. But anyway, his primary relationship is with that of Launchpad, and in Doofus's mind, Launchpad can do no wrong, even when faced with Major Courage from Where No Duck Has Gone Before, who was Doofus's TV hero along with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It was like the one thing that they did that felt like uniquely just, hey, this is our thing. Launchpad isn't part of this, but no, Launchpad finds his way into that story. In the '87 cartoon, Doofus is a character defined by being somewhat of a clumsy idiot with a heart of gold. And while that's endearing, especially in episodes like Hero for Hire and Super Do, the latter being his own personal episode, it makes him a bit flat. My favorite episode with him would be either Aqueducts or Ducks of the Future, with the former actually having Doofus be useful, and the latter just having Doofus be a background character that I always think he should be. The reboot makes him, I would say crazy, but I think that kind of misses the point. In a lot of ways, this Doofus is just kind of...
No, not him. No, anything but that. Send me back to be Gribble-Chow, please!
Doofus Drake, for the prosecution. If he's the prosecutor, why is he restrained?
He said he thought it would be fun.
I mean, he's been reimagined as a young, rich heir who, for want to be nice, is trying to fill the void in his life left by his grandmother who doted on him. He almost feels like a force of nature in himself, especially when he interacts with Louie. Like, a lot of what he does feels like he's sort of breaking the laws of the universe just by how he acts. And it's almost frightening to some extent, but it's also just under the lines of comical. But the problem is, I always felt like we could have resolved his character, but we didn't. We just want to turn it up more. And maybe his ending in The Life and Crimes of Scrooge McDuck was appropriate, was the best route to go, but I never quite got the feeling that he and Louie were those kind of adversaries. Maybe that was the point. Maybe Louie really wasn't that bad, but Doofus took it that personally. So, yeah, that does work, but at the same time it doesn't. I find it more fun to watch 2017's Doofus more than the '87 Doofus. The '87 Doofus is sort of like, what stupid things is he going to say or going to miss that I'm supposed to laugh at? I never know what to expect from 2017's Doofus. He's just that unpredictably fun. Like, he's like a mellowed out Joker, except instead of, like, committing mass murders, he just wants to horribly inconvenience you. Unless you're his parents, in which case, yeah. I can't help but like 2017 a bit more, even though I find both of them annoying in their own special ways. So next is Duckworth. Now, in the '87 DuckTales, Duckworth is definitely a background character, but he, like a lot of butlers in television, has your attention whatever scene he's in. He sort of lends a certain amount of credence and life to the mansion in DuckTales. Even when he's just there, he's like, okay, this is how this place functions. Because, like in a lot of TV shows with butlers, the butler for some reason does everything. Like he's the chauffeur, he is the gardener, he's the housekeeper, he's sometimes the chef. Like for some reason, the butler has to do it all. But one thing that a lot of butlers have in common in television is their sense of humor.
Where's Scrooge?
Sorry, no riffraff, save by appointment.
In the context the show presents, Duckworth has been with Scrooge longer than anyone, and even when he has no reason to stay with Scrooge, he stays with him, like in Down and Out in Duckburg, where Scrooge loses his fortune. Despite this, Duckworth has one episode to his name, and it's honestly a great one, Duckworth's Revolt, which centers around the nephews understanding the character Duckworth more, as they view him as just sort of Scrooge's slave, and when finding out he doesn't care about making money, Scrooge fires him, because that's like the worst thing you could ever tell Scrooge. And after he's been fired, he and the boys are kidnapped by a spaceship of alien vegetables, and they're made to be slaves. And the boys want to fight off the alien vegetables, and Duckworth's like, no, we shan't fight. And they're like, well, Duckworth is just a chicken. He can't be trusted. Like, we can't have him. He won't help us. And it turns out Duckworth actually was helping, because no one expected anything of him, so he was able to sage a revolt. And what makes this episode great is really this line here.
Creatures, no one has the right to make another do their work for them.
Where do you get off telling anybody anything about doing someone else's work? I was told you were a slave on your own planet.
I was never a slave. I worked as a servant, but nobody forced me to be one. It was my choice, and I was proud of the work I did. You prisoners have no choice, and that makes you slaves. You should have the right to say no.
That line sums up Duckworth's character. To him, service is his own reward, and it is where he derives meaning from. He doesn't need money or fame or anything. He just needs his work. Now, in the reboot, Duckworth he's actually boring. Now, make no mistake, McMystery at McDuck Manor is a fun episode. It's his debut episode in the reboot. It's his return. Turns out he's been in the opening the whole time. But the problem is, outside of that reveal, there is nothing else for Duckworth to do. He's legitimately the same boring character. Half the time he's just there. And the gimmick is, he's a ghost. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fun, but what else? And this wouldn't be a problem, but 2017 has always built itself on this whole, we're going to explore all these characters. We don't explore Duckworth. He's like, hey, he was alive, he's dead, now he's back, but still a ghost. That's it. There's not even much of his classic dry wit. He's still a butler and is set up as Scrooge's oldest and most loyal servant, but again, that's it. It feels like the character didn't get rebooted so much as he died in 87. It was summoned back in 2017. So, I'm sorry, 87 Duckworth is definitely the best. Next is Launchpad. And honestly, the 87 version is pretty interesting because you could honestly see him as the main character in any other series.
You know, he really wasn't a bad guy. A bad pilot, yes, but not a bad guy. Gyro, look!
Big rubble? No trouble.
He's a more heroic and simpler version of Baloo from Tailspin. He's very much the action hero, but the series doesn't need him to be that. He's very much the action hero, but the series doesn't need him to be that, so he's more of an action sidekick along the lines of Ray Spanner from Johnny Quest, at least in terms of status. Launchpad is really just one big kid with a pilot's license. How he got that license, I do not know, but whatever. He's basically SpongeBob behind the wheel, except where SpongeBob seems to just freeze up, Launchpad just sort of knows what to do, but still somehow ends up crashing. And he really wants to help any way he can, and the best way he can help is as a pilot. So I didn't quite know why, and I think it's always a big question, why does Scrooge hire Launchpad? And so one of the episodes, I think it was called Launchpad's First Crash. I think there was the episode where Scrooge reveals that Launchpad works for a penny a mile. I'm like, you know what? That'll do it. That'll do it. Scrooge is that cheap that he'll put up with it. But it honestly feels like he was designed to be a replacement for Donald, a younger and more physically able counterpart to Scrooge for the kids to hang out with the difference being more that Launchpad's rapport with Scrooge is totally different. Honestly, I like Launchpad in 87 primarily for his humor, which is often based around his, I don't want to say stupidity so much as simple-mindedness. Similar to, say, Rose Nod from Golden Girls, R.I.P. Betty White. A lot of this stuff goes over his head, but he means well. One thing I like about the 87 era is that it devotes a lot of episodes to him, whether it be something like Where No Duck Has Gone Before, where he clashes with TV hero Major Courage as they have a clash in space, Hero for Hire, where he tries to be a superhero and is tricked into robbing Scrooge's banks, robbing banks, because of course he is. Launchpad Civil War, where he finds the truth about his family's history in the Civil War. Trust me, it is not bad, but it's also hilarious and also kind of bad. Or even the time he was an astronaut or a secret agent. And even then, there's also personal stories like Top Duck and Launchpad's First Crash, where we see Launchpad's pilot family and his first adventure with Scrooge. 2017 makes Launchpad, I hate to say it, he's kind of stupid. There's no other way to say it. They take the childlike, simple-mindedness of the character and turn it up to 11. And it's kind of distracting as it seems more like this is his character. Its sole purpose is to make you laugh, as opposed to one aspect of it. There's also this idea that he's oddly obsessed with hanging out with Dewey as opposed to making Launchpad someone the kids want to spend time with themselves. A lot of Launchpad's competency is taken out of this, making him more of a joke than anything else. And that's something I've always sort of criticized 2017 for. It feels like we really throw out more laughs than we do story, which is weird because 2017 has a pretty interesting story. To the show's credit, there have been some good stories done with it, playing up his love of heroes like Darkwing Duck and Gizmo Duck, and how he sort of pushes them to be better, and his faith in them over himself does pay off in the finale.
Get back up! Got this!
I'm sorry. I'm not a hero.
That's ridiculous. You helped inspire me to be a hero. And me, pal.
Same here.
And I as well, Earth Launchpad.
So honestly, if I'm being honest, I can see his character getting expanded on more had the series been allowed to continue, like Duckworth maybe. Launchpad's 87 version has more stories, but unlike Duckworth, there are more endearing moments to his character in that he really is just trying to be the best person he can be and believes in impossible heroes. That's sort of the difference between 87 and 2017, is that 2017 Launchpad is again trying to be the best him he can be and trying to make you laugh with how stupid he is. But that's more than the direction the show took, and that does sort of sour it for me. There's no really personal moments to him outside of really surface level stuff. There's really build up throughout the series, but does pay off at the end. So I gotta give the 87 one for that. I'm sorry, just yeah. So finally we have Mrs. Beakley, or Beakley as you just called in the reboot. So the 87 series has Mrs. B as a sort of every nanny ever character. She's one part housekeeper, one part nanny, one part just a big mystery, which helped out in the reboot. It's easy to sum up Beakley as the character that faints a lot, but honestly, she's got a great sense of obliviousness, tenderness, and discipline as she will stand up to anyone in the series who believes they are in the wrong. It's easy to write her off, but it should be noted that she was hired primarily that she could handle wild boys like the nephews, and in her first couple of episodes, she does do that, and she gives as good as she gets. The problem is, though, that is sort of where her character is. Her character is really defined by her interaction with the boys and Webby, actually more the boys. Some of her episodes, like Jungle Duck and Maid of Myth, show that she's a character who's not only capable, but has her own history independent of Scrooge, the boys, and Webby. And that's sort of weird. Like, she has very little rapport with Webby. It's usually for comedic effect. Despite this, she, along with Duckworth, Launchpad, and Gyro, help make the Ducktales Universe feel more lived in one way or another. Now, coming to the reboot, Beakley is just a beast, and I love her for it. It definitely played up the idea that in 87, there was still some mystery to her. Like, nothing about her was really concrete, which was sort of a problem that cartoons in the 80s had. Like, there was rarely a cartoon that had a set understanding of continuity. Certain things just never came up again when they should have. As I've said before, in the 87 version, there's no way Glumgold can catch up to Scrooge because in their second story, Scrooge doubled his fortune in the scales of macaroon. Actually, he tripled it because in addition to becoming the broker for the Firefly fruit, he also got the treasure of Atlantis, which was huge. So yeah, there's nothing Glumgold can do. Anyway, coming back to Beakley. Again, we're returning to the mystery. We're playing on the mystery aspect. Like if she's Webby's grandmother, where are Webby's parents, or rather, what happened to Beakley's child? Reimagining her as a secret agent with a mountain of secrets was interesting in itself.
Okay, I'll get the boys and Donald emotionally primed while we wait. I'm a former agent and a grandmother. I know how to weaponize guilt.
When she was really at her best in season 1, I think, where she really is sort of like a nanny-like figure, I could have imagined her no longer being in Shush was because of something that happened to Webby's parents. Honestly, Beakley is a fine character playing off of Webby, Scrooge, Donald, Lena, the boys, Della. She plays off them rather well until Escape from the Impossible Bin, and that's because the sudden change comes out of nowhere, where the Harper of Nirvana did a better job showing that these less positive sides of her character. Naming how dedicated she is to protecting Webby from everything. Granted, this was a bit in contradiction to the first season where she's totally saying like, hey, look, you can go off with them, you can go off with Scrooge, but just no more lies, no more secrets, which is again weird considering, you know, the lost Harper Nirvana.
I'm your grandmother, dear. I have no secrets from you from here on out.
The ultimate reveal about Webby and Beakley's relationship, which I don't want to go into here because it's not just because it's a spoiler, but because it's oddly more of a Webby-centric reveal. But it does sort of explain why Beakley is so protective of Webby. And the role that has with her parents was, I think, fun for the most part. In terms of which version is better, I think it comes down to which era you prefer, but I personally have to say I prefer the reboots Beakley just because of season 1, honestly. While both versions are not always front and center, 2017 does a better job of showing Beakley as a voice of reason as opposed to something as to sometimes oblivious authority figure of 87. So that's how I feel about these characters here. Honestly, the biggest disappointment for me is definitely Duckworth, because I can see how Launchpad would appeal, how the 2017... Honestly, I think Duckworth is the biggest disappointment because nothing is ever done with him outside of his, initial reappearance or resurgence to the Ducktales universe. Every other character really has something to do, has an established rapport. Duckworth's rapport with everyone is sort of like hinted at. Like, Webby's not surprised to see him back. Beakley has like a back and forth with him for like one scene, and that's kind of it. Maybe in season 2, but again, that's just one moment. I think they're trying to recapture the sort of sophisticated Duckworth that sort of added life to any scene he's in. Sadly, this Duckworth is dead. Pretty much dead on arrival. But anyway, that's it for this video. What do you guys think? What's your favorite of these 4, and which version you like the most? I would definitely say Beakley is the best out of this for 2017, and for the 87, I have to say Duckworth. I just have to say Duckworth. Maybe Launchpad, but I always think Launchpad is a matter of taste, and every version of Doofus is annoying no matter where you go. I'm sorry. So, yeah, leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'll catch you all later. This is Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well. I like it, though.
Now let's toast to a fine farewell meal, topped with a dash of perspective.